Since early morning, Jack had been out with his mother, beginning a relentless search for Tu Tien. Ever since she left behind a letter and vanished without a trace, he hadn't known a moment of peace. His mother, though previously preparing for a trip, dropped everything the moment she heard Tu Tien was gone and chose to accompany her son on the journey. They visited every place they could think of, the construction site, the cave, and even Mrs. Thuai's house, Tu Tien's former mother-in-law. Jack even asked his colleagues at the site for help, but every lead came up empty. No one knew where she had gone, which only added to Jack's growing unease. His mother, though saying little, couldn't hide the worry etched into her face. When they arrived at Mrs. Thuai's house, tension filled the air from the first moment. She stood with arms crossed at the door, her gaze sharp and unwelcoming. Her voice dripped with sarcasm as she spoke. "So, you people think you're saints, took Tien in like some precious jewel, and now she's gone, so you come running to me?" Jack's mother remained calm, not wanting to escalate things. "We're just trying to find out if you know where she might be. We haven't heard from her in days. We're genuinely worried." But Mrs. Thu was far from cooperative. Her voice grew louder. "Worried? So now my house was such a dump you had to whisk her away, right? She left on her own. If she's missing, go find her yourselves. Don't come here causing trouble." Jack clenched his fists, trying to stay composed. "I only helped her because she was struggling, that's all. Please, don't misunderstand." But his attempt at explaining only infuriated Mrs. Thuai more. She pointed directly at Jack's mother, her voice rising to a near shout. "Forget the whole friendship thing. I won't deal with people who defend a woman that abandons her husband." She slammed the door, leaving Jack and his mother standing silently outside. His mother gently held his hand, speaking softly. "It's okay, son. We did what's right. If Tu Tien is truly suffering somewhere, I still support you helping her." The first drops of afternoon rain began to fall, growing steadily heavier. The mountain roads grew slick, and the worsening weather made the search even harder. The storm felt like an omen, a warning of something heavier to come. With no new leads, they had no choice but to head back, their hearts weighed down. But despite everything, Jack's eyes still held a glimmer of hope. "Tu Tien, where are you? Are you cold? Are you scared?" The mountain rain had lasted for hours, turning the air icy and raw. Tuttienne sat huddled beside a clump of bamboo, her back pressed against the damp wall of an abandoned hut. Her clothes were soaked through, hair plastered to her face, and her feet caked in mud, but none of it mattered. Cold, hungry, exhausted and alone, those feelings clung to her like a fever that refused to break. In front of her stood a makeshift hut built from rough bamboo, its torn plastic tarp flapping in the wind. It might have once been a rest stop for someone, but now no one came here anymore. Still, it offered shelter from the rain. With no other option, she dragged herself inside, her steps heavy. She curled into a corner, arms wrapped tightly around herself, her body trembling. As the rain eased, she forced herself back onto her feet, determined to find something, anything, to fill her stomach. She followed a narrow path through the hillside fields and managed to pick a few green papayas. With no salt, no pot to cook, she had no choice but to eat them raw. The bitter taste scratched at her throat, but she kept chewing. It was the only thing she had. Elsewhere, Jack stood on his balcony, staring out at the forest. The storm had made searching harder than ever. He had asked co-workers at the site, checked every village corner, but no one had seen Tu Tien. Still, he refused to give up. Inside, his mother poured tea, her gaze resting on him with quiet concern. Calm as ever, she asked gently, "Still no sign of her?" Jack shook his head, his voice hoarse. "I've been to all the usual places. No one's seen her." His mother thought for a moment, then said, "Then tomorrow we go farther, into the forest, the next village, even the caves. I'll come with you." Jack looked up, surprised. "You're not going on your trip?" She smiled. "What's more important than helping someone who needs us? That girl has no one. If we still can help, we should give it everything we've got." Meanwhile, Tu Tien sat by the roadside wrapping the papayas in banana leaves, tying them up with a scrap of twine she had found. She had made a decision. Tomorrow she would go to the market in the neighboring village and try to sell what she had. It might not fetch much, but if she could sell them, maybe she could buy some rice, a pinch of salt, or maybe just sit in the crowd, listen to people laughing, talking, just to remember what it felt like to exist among others. sun had just broken through after days of endless rain, and Tu Tien sat quietly in front of the weathered hut. Her eyes stared into the distance, arms wrapped around her thin shirt for warmth. There was no one by her side, not a word of comfort. The loneliness was so deep, even the sound of rustling leaves startled her. A neighbor walked by and, after glancing at the hut a few times, stopped. Her voice was dry and sharp. "Miss, this land belongs to my family. You can stay, but know your place. This isn't a spot for just anyone to build whatever they please." Tu Tien immediately stood up and nodded quickly. "I'm sorry, I'm only staying here for a few days." The woman said nothing more, but her eyes hinted at something calculating. Tu Tien reached into her pocket and pulled out a few crumpled bills, handing them over like a quiet plea for peace. Only then did the woman walk away, leaving her alone again with the collapsing walls of a hut, fading into the forest silence. Not long after, Tu Tien carried her basket toward the nearby stream. She picked a few large banana leaves, gathered forest greens, and found a ripe yellow papaya. She carefully peeled it, savoring its cool sweetness. For days, she had lived on fruits and wild vegetables, surviving one meal at a time. Back at Jack's home, he sat in the living room with his mother. His face was tight with tension, eyes glancing repeatedly at the door as if waiting for something, or someone. His mother spoke calmly. "The rain's finally cleared. Let's take advantage of it and search a few more places. I heard someone say they might have seen a girl with a scarf at the morning market. Not sure if it's her, but worth checking." Jack nodded, the faintest spark of hope returning to his eyes. His mother continued, "Even though I've got travel plans, if this means something to you, I'll stay. That girl's been through a lot. Follow your heart. If you need help, I'll be right there with you." Without delay, she and Jack got in the car and drove off, asking people along the way, stopping at every crossroad and stall, but no one had any news. Meanwhile, Tu Tien was sitting at the far end of a small village market. In front of her were a few papayas, a handful of carefully picked wild greens. Her hands moved quietly, wiping the fruit, arranging them with care. No one paid attention to the silent girl sitting at the edge of the market. No one knew the bitterness behind her calm posture, or the fragile line she was walking between holding on and letting go. A little while later, a kind villager approached, asking about the produce, and bought a few papayas from her. Tu Tien smiled gently, thanked them, then quietly gathered her things and left. That morning, the village market was livelier than usual. Beneath sun-shielding tarps, voices filled the air. Laughter, bargaining, the rustle of produce and the aroma of food and herbs blending together into a chorus of life. In a quiet corner tucked behind the crowd, Tu Tien sat silently beside her modest pile of papayas and wild greens, her tired eyes watching every passerby with quiet longing. Her rough, calloused hands gently wiped the dust from the fruit, rearranging each piece with care. No one in the crowd knew that behind her frail posture were countless sleepless nights under the rain, and a tattered hut deep in the woods, where she now lived alone. At the same time, Jack made his way through the market, his eyes scanning the sea of faces, refusing to give up. After days of fruitless searching, he had decided to take a chance and walk all the way to this market in the next village. He asked anyone who might know, an elderly woman selling sweet soup, a girl running a fabric stall, but everyone shook their heads. The crowd was too dense, the market too busy, and no one had paid attention to a quiet girl selling ordinary papayas. As he walked, Jack called his mother, his voice hoarse from exhaustion. "I'm at the lower village market now. I think I'm near the vegetable stalls. If I'm lucky, I might find her today." On the other end, his mother let out a breath of relief. "Be careful, son. And if you see Tu Tien, tell her, I'm so happy. I've been praying you'd find her." After the call, Jack continued weaving through the market, asking again and again. And then, just as he was beginning to lose hope, he saw her. A small figure huddled behind her basket, hands arranging greens and papayas, her face noticeably thinner. He stopped in his tracks, breath catching. Then, without hesitation, he walked toward her. Tu Tien looked up and their eyes met. For a second, she froze. Her body tensed as if she was about to run, but before she could move, Jack sat down beside her, his voice low and steady. "Where have you been? Do you have any idea how worried I've been?" Tu Tien lowered her head, her voice barely louder than a whisper. "I'm sorry. I didn't want to bother your mother, or you. I was scared your mother-in-law or Tien would come back and cause trouble. I didn't know where else to go, so I hid here." Jack looked at her for a long moment, saying nothing. Then, silently, he began helping her rearrange the display of her produce. After a while, he stood up and returned with a bag of new clothes. "These are for you. I was afraid you didn't have enough. And you don't look well." Tuttienne didn't say anything, but her eyes had turned red. The market was still crowded, people still rushed past, but for her, in that moment, just sitting beside Jack, hearing a few gentle words, that was enough to make her heart feel warm again. After handing the clothes to Tu Tien, Jack gently led her away from the crowd and into a small roadside eatery. The place had only a few simple wooden tables and chairs, but it was quiet and airy. Jack ordered her a bowl of hot rice and soup, while he asked for just a glass of water. As they waited, he looked at her, his voice soft, as if afraid to frighten her. "Come stay at my place for now. That hut of yours. One rainstorm and it leaks, one gust of wind and the roof could fly off. I'm really worried about you." Tu Tien stayed quiet for a moment, her eyes lowered to the table, fingers absent-mindedly tracing the rim of her glass. "I know you're kind, your mum too, but I can't keep burdening others like this. I already caused people to misunderstand your mother and made you worry so much. I don't want to owe anyone anything more." Jack looked like he wanted to say something but stopped himself. He knew she was clinging to the last bit of dignity she had left through these difficult days. He respected that, though the worry in his eyes remained. After finishing her meal, Tu Tien set down her chopsticks and looked up at Jack. "I'm seriously thinking about filing for divorce from Tien. I can't keep living like this, being insulted, watched, controlled. I need a different path, no matter how rough it is." Jack nodded. "Whatever you need, just tell me, whether it's legal support or a place to stay. I'll help. You don't have to carry all of this alone." After the meal, Jack took her to meet the village head, someone both of them trusted and who knew well about Tu Tien's circumstances. In the small tin-roofed room, the village elder welcomed them with a serious expression. Tu Tien sat down at the table, her voice steady but laced with emotion. "I want to file for unilateral divorce. I no longer have the strength to live with someone like Tien. I want to end it completely, so I don't have to keep running." The village head nodded, listening carefully, then pulled out a form. He guided her through each section, explaining the procedure of submitting the paperwork to the district court, noting that the process could take anywhere from 2 to 6 months depending on the case. Tu Tien signed carefully, her hand trembling slightly, but her eyes shone with resolve. She stood up, bowed to the elder in gratitude, then turned to Jack, the one person who had stood beside her through the worst of storms. And though the road ahead remained uncertain, at least today she had dared to take a step forward for herself.
Chỉ chờ cơ hội này để trút hết khinh thường lên đầu cô. Cái nhà này cần có cháu đích tôn, chứ không phải cần một người đàn bà vô dụng. Từng lời nói chữ dắt dao cứ sâu vào trái tim tự tiên. Đôi mắt cô đỏ hoe, bàn tay nắm chặt vào và áo cũ. Cô kìm nén để không bật khóc trước mặt những kẻ chẳng chút thương xót cô. Chiếu người từng đỏ tay gối với cô, người từng hứa hẹn bao điều, giờ đây lại lạnh lùng đứng nhìn không một chút do dự. Cô đã không còn gì trong ánh mắt anh ta. Nỗi đau không còn dừng lại ở những lời miệt thị khi mẹ chồng lớn tiếng đuổi cô ra khỏi nhà. Tự tin gần như quỵ xuống. Cô không biết mình đã làm gì sai ngoài việc sinh ra trong một số phận bất hạnh. Ngày cô về nhà chồng, cô cũng từng e thẹn bước qua bậc cửa này mang theo bao ước mơ về một mái ấm. Nhưng hôm nay cũng chính bậc cửa đó cô phải rời đi trong tủi nhục, trong sự lạnh lùng của người chồng. Trong